Committee on Jobs and Economic Development. It is Wednesday, February 19th. Members, we have a quorum. Today, we will be hearing a number of Senate files. For an example, we're going to hear Senate File 1410 from Senator Mann, an overview presentation on workforce boards. We'll hear Senate File 1300 from Senator Klein, Senate File 800 from Senator Putnam, Senate File number 227 and 240 from our own Senator Draheim, and Senate File 1061 from Senator Frentz. Member Senator Friend's bill has to be moved to the bottom, but what I think I'm going to do is bifurcate that presentation and let some of the testifiers who has to leave to testify early, and then we'll hear the rest of the important testimony or the rest of the testimony. Notice I corrected myself, not important testimony, like your testimony is not important. It's very important, but I want to be respectful of your time, and I understand that time is at a premium. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Senator Mann, which will be Senate File number 1410, and then after that, I'm going to then take some of the testimony from individuals who are here to testify for Senate File 1061, so that they could be on their way, and then we'll go back to the start of our agenda. Members and folks, I just want you to know that you can see that we have a full agenda today, and so we will be limiting all testifiers to 2 minutes. That's our practice. We time you. We make sure that we stay on time. This was also posted on the committee website, and our testifiers have been made aware of this in advance. I also want to be thoughtful and recognize Mayor Carter, who's with us, who is going to testify, but I want the mayor to know that we are appreciative of his presence, and we will hear him testify. And he also knows that he only has 2 minutes, so let me just say that for the record. But we are appreciative of him, and we want him to know how much we do appreciate him. With that being stated, first up, we have Senator Mann presenting Senate File 1410. Senator Mann, please come forward as you are there and start your presentation. And then senators can take as much time as they want, so folks know that they are not bound by the 2 minutes. And then the committee is not bound by any time limit if they have questions. It is only testifiers, and we encourage you not to repeat what the other person has said, so you can build on each other's testimony. So again, thank you. Welcome, Senator Mann, and present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, with Senate File 1410, the City of Bloomington is seeking legislative approval for $300,000 in workforce development funds to support the expansion of workforce development programming and services in Bloomington, including the city's Bloom in Bloomington Summer Internship Program. This is a program that provides career exploration, work experience, and leadership development for youth ages 16 to 24, with a focus on youth who have barriers to employment. The program fosters year-round collaboration with employers, workforce development partners, educators, and young people, and it's just a really fantastic program. With that, Mr. Chair, we have some testifiers.
Thank you. Thanks, committee.
Introduce yourself for the record and provide us your 2 minutes of testimony. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. My name's Kim Berger, and I serve as the Community Development Director for the City of Bloomington. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about our workforce programming as well as the Bloom program in Bloomington. Our motivation to expand workforce development programming really comes from the conversation that we have with our business leaders who consistently talk about the need to connect with local talent in the future workforce. The Bloom program intentionally is designed to expose our young people to local, well-paying career tracks and all types of industries, including manufacturing, government, and professional services. Our employer partners are local, and they offer opportunities at companies like Seagate, Polar Semiconductor, Larkin Hoffman, Wilderness Inquiry, and TKDA. We are especially excited about the opportunity to support chip manufacturing companies this summer with this program, as we know this aligns with the state's Drive for 5 initiative. And we hope that with these additional resources from the state, we will be able to expand the opportunities for young people to connect into our local employers with the internship opportunities and career exploration, as well as build their professional networks that we all know lead to career and pathways to success. The last thing I wanted to highlight is that this program leverages private sector dollars because the local employers are paying the interns directly.
All right, thank you so very much. And if you introduce yourself for the record and give us your 2 minutes of testimony. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Holly Masick, and I am the Port Authority Administrator for the City of Bloomington. My team oversees economic development for the city and the Bloom program as part of our portfolio of work. Our team coordinates the intern and employer training that is part of the program, matches up the employers with the interns, and supports both the interns and employers throughout the internship experience. This is our third year running Bloom, and we were able to double the program size from last year because of our connections with local employers and local schools, including Normandale Community College and our high schools. Demand for the program is high, and as of today, we have more than twice as many applicants as we have intern spots available. We hope with these funds we can double the program again in 2026 and 2027 to support the demand we are seeing from young people. We also want to explore other ways to support workforce development, as we know this continues to be a major economic development priority for both state and city leaders. Thank you again for your consideration of our request, and we are happy to answer questions.
Thank you so very much. Thank you both for your testimony. I'm going to go to Ms. Noner, who is our fiscal analyst, just so she can give us a brief synopsis of the fiscal issues.
Mr. Chair and committee members, to my knowledge, the Bloom project, or the Bloom program in Bloomington and the other workforce development programming has not received previous funding in the jobs budget, at least in the recent biennia.
And I noticed that, Ms. Noner, that there's language on line 1.9 that says this appropriation is available until June 30, 2028. Does that create any fiscal challenges as you would understand it?
Mr. Chair and members, not to my knowledge, it shouldn't create any fiscal challenges. We've used similar language in previous jobs bills.
All right. And to the testifier, I recognize that you said, and I missed it, that this particular initiative would also bring in public sector support. Can you talk about that a little bit and what that number was again? And I think it was, either one of you can testify to it.
Sure, Chair, I can respond to that. The way the program is designed is that the interns are paid by the employers. So what my comment was that we are leveraging private sector dollars because we're not using the public funds to pay the interns. The funding is going to support the staff that are needed for the program as well as the programmatic costs. So this is what we see is that with those intern wages being paid by the employers, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of investment matching our funding.
Any other questions from the committee? Senator Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, this sounds like the step-up program from the city of Minneapolis where corporate companies hire students at a certain age through the city. And my question is, how much is the city willing to put into this program themselves?
To either one of the testifiers, if you identify yourself for the record and answer the question. Thank you.
Chair and members, it is the program. I'm Kim Berger, and the Community Development Director, and the program has been piloted by the city for the last 2 years, and so there has been substantial staff time investment in testing the program and delivering on the program for 2 years. We did commit to a temporary staff position in 2025, but we're looking for funding to sustain the program and grow it into the future. It is very similar to the different internship programs that are being run by Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Brooklink. It's more like the Brooklink design in Bloomington, or Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center, because the wages are being paid by the employers, as I understand it.
Follow-up, Senator Mohammed?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. My follow-up is, I think that's pretty similar across the board for most cities that do this. Usually the employer will pay the wage of the student, and I could be wrong because I was a step-up intern myself, and the company paid my salaries at the time. My question is, like, what demographics are you hiring when it comes to, or like, who are you focused on in terms of as a city when you think about a workforce program like this for young students?
And along with that, can you tell us how many students have you served leading up to today? Because it's my understanding that you say it's been piloted for the last couple of years, so that information would be helpful. To the testifier.
Absolutely. Mr. Chair and members, so as far as the number of students that have participated, last year we had 15, and so this year we have We're aiming for 30 intern spots. We have 29 secured at this point. And then, if I may, can I have the first question again, please?
Senator Mohammed.
Who are you focused on in terms of when you're recruiting these students?
Absolutely.
And what
To
ages?
testify.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members, we are working with young people ages 16 to 24. They need to either be attending school in Bloomington, be that high school or one of our college programs, or they could be living in Bloomington and attending college elsewhere or in between and looking for jobs. We are looking to serve young people who have barriers to employment. We're looking to help build those professional networks. And so we've been working with different guidance counselors and other referral sources, as well as groups like Hire, to help us identify the students or young people that will be in the program.
Senator Mohammed, any follow-up?
I have one last follow-up.
Senator
Thank you.
Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think you mentioned that you guys have already hired one temporary position for this program, and now you're looking for long-term funding to sustain it. So it sounds like a pilot program. How much has the city already dedicated to that pilot program?
To the testifier.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members. I'd say as far as this original staff person goes, we are looking at it is over a commitment of over $120,000 this year. There's also professional development costs and programming in addition, which is approximately $40,000 to $60,000 over the last 2 years, but I would need to verify those numbers exactly for you.
And feel free, later on, post committee, if you want to submit any information to us, you can do so with our committee administrator, Tom Melton, and we'll make sure that information gets disseminated to the rest of the committee. Senator Mohammed.
Okay, a few comments. Thank you for bringing this forward, and thank you, Senator Elise Mann. I support programs like this because I am a product of the Step Up program through the city of Minneapolis, but I also think it's really important that cities do invest in it themselves, especially when we're asking private companies to do so as well. I think when we do ourselves, they also do more.
Senator Pratt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Mann, I appreciate that you've got, and to the city of Bloomington, I appreciate you got the public sector engaged and contributing, but I just had a quick question on the appropriation available date that you brought up. While I know it doesn't violate budget rules, it is unusual that we see something carry over to the next biennium. Can you explain why we're looking for 3 years instead of a 2-year appropriation?
Either Ms. Bergeron or Masick or Senator Mann, either one. And whoever is going to give us the information, please identify yourself for the record.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair and members. My name, again, it's Holly Masick, Port Authority Administrator for Bloomington. And we are asking for several years because of our program cycle tends to go over the course of the year. We are actually running the program in the summer and then gearing up for it over the winter. And so we're hoping to leverage this money over several years. As we mentioned before, the city is also putting in resources as well.
Senator Pratt, follow-up?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm kind of surprised Senator Draheim doesn't have a reporting amendment for it, but I'm sure one will be coming at some point in time.
See, why'd you get him started? Because now he was quiet, and now he decided that he wanted to turn his mic on.
I
Senator
just have to
Draheim.
poke the bear, Mr. Chair.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair and Senator Pratt. And you might have stepped out for the last hearing, but we had a discussion about moving forward instead of having an amendment on every bill for reporting. We would address it at the year end. And I think Chair Champion has been more than willing to work with me on that as we progress. So just for Senator Pratt's sake, I just wanted to repeat that. But thank you.
And that is correct. We decided to wait to the end and see what language that would be there so we don't have to do it on every individual bill, but our bill as a whole. Any other questions? Senator Pa.
Thank you, Chair Champion. So I don't have a question, but I do just want to make a comment that this is a fantastic program, and I can see how much it will flourish in the city of Brooklyn, in the city of Bloomington, because actually Ms. Kim Bergeron was our economic development director in Brooklyn Park for many years while I was there on the city council. So, and the Bloomington stole her because of how great she is. And so I'm glad that you guys are starting this there and that I know it will be successful. But I truly believe that when we invest in our youth, we really invest in the future. Future leaders, future innovators, in the success of our state and our nation. And so young people just do not have the opportunities that we think they do. We, as adults, think, well, there's opportunities everywhere. You're just not looking hard enough. It's not true. There's a lot of barriers and challenges that young people face in trying to get those opportunities, and programs like this really do help them to connect to those opportunities. So I want to first thank the city of Bloomington for doing a program like this for our young folks. I want to thank Senator Mann for championing this. Absolutely love it. And I just want to say we miss you, Ms. Berggren in Brooklyn Park, but I'm happy that Bloomington has you and fighting for them.
Any other comments or questions for the testifiers? Seeing none, before we lay it over for possible inclusion, Senator Mann, any closing statements that you would like to make at this time?
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. Chair. Senator Pott, your loss. No, this is just a really fantastic program. Again, removing barriers for young people who have those barriers in front of them. It's really important. And the city has already invested a lot of resources into this program, and I hope that you will be open to supporting it.
Thank you so very much. With that being said, Senate File number 1410 will be laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you to the testifiers. Now, I'm getting to those who are here on 1061. There's a couple folks who need to leave early. If you do, will you be so kind as to approach the dais, and we can take your testimony now before Senator Frentz comes in. And as I mentioned earlier, we are hearing some testimony now from those who are here to testify for Senate File number 1061 because the author is away. We expect him to be here in about 10 minutes, but some folks have some time crunch, some time sensitivities, so I wanted to be respectful of them as well. With that being said, Mr. Mayor Melvin Carter, who I did talk about earlier, and he knows that he has 2 minutes as well, and we are timing you, Mr. Mayor, because I know that you like to talk too, because I like to talk. With that being said, state your name for the record and provide your testimony. Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair Champion, Vice Chair Mohammed, members of the committee. I'm St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify in support of this proposal for a $5 million grant to assist with costs related to the 2026 World Junior Hockey Championship. I'm honored to serve alongside Senator Housley as honorary co-chairs of the event, which is one of the most prestigious international tournaments in hockey, featuring the best young players from around the world and serving as a major launching pad for future NHL stars. Minnesotans like Brock Faber, Neil Broughton, Blake Wheeler, and Phil Housley are among Team USA World Junior players who turned pro and whose legacy continues to leave a mark on the sport. This is one of the most watched hockey events in the world, drawing in millions of viewers on television and through sellout crowds. 200,000 fans from all over the globe will fly to Minnesota, stay in our hotels, use our transit, shop at our local businesses, and spend money at our bars, restaurants, and other attractions. Think of it as a mix between March Madness and the Olympics, mixed with the spirit of our state hockey championships. We estimate an approximate $75 million boost to our state's economy through this event. We are very proud to wear the badge of honor as Minnesota, as the capital city of the state of hockey, which we're in Minnesota. We are home to the Minnesota Wild, the inaugural Walter Cup Championships, Minnesota Frost, and of course our Parks and Rec Department oversee 8 outdoor neighborhood ice rinks. And I should also say our Edgecombe Youth Hockey team took home the first ever Mayor's Cup just a couple of weeks ago, prevailing over a team from Minneapolis by a score of 3-0, Senator. I just like that on the record. This is our opportunity to raise the bar. It's a $5 million grant from Explore Minnesota supports our ability to deliver a fantastic event. Our partner at Minnesota Sports and Events has an exceptional track record of planning and executing world-class sporting events like Super Bowl 52 and most recently the Team USA Olympic Gymnastics Trials. With the help of this grant, we will seize this moment and elevate our state as a global sports destination. I ask you for your support to issue this $5 million grant, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. You know you went over, but I'm not going to say anything.
Sir, by my clock, I have 4 seconds.
And if you hold on, Mr. Mayor, we might have a couple questions, but I think that's Mr. Matzko. Say it again.
Matsko.
There we go. If you introduce yourself for the record and give us your 2 minutes of testimony, welcome to the committee, and I know that you're the head coach of the University of Minnesota men's hockey team.
Yes.
That's what I understand.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, Champion, and Committee, it's an honor to be here today. My name is Bob Matsko. I am the head hockey coach at the University of Minnesota, and it's an honor that we've been chosen to host the World Junior Championships next year. I've been coaching for over 40 years. I've had the opportunity to coach 3 World Championships with the World Juniors in Sweden, Canada, and the U.S. This is truly the greatest amateur tournament in the world outside of the Olympics, when the Olympics was amateur. As stated, we have many of our Minnesota Wild players with Faber and Boldy who have won gold medal. But this tournament started in the 70s, and for 3 decades, USA was just a hope and a prayer to win. But that all changed in 2004 when USA won our first gold medal. Since then, we've won 7. I'm proud to say that I've coached 1, and another gentleman, Phil Housley, coached a gold medal as well, and I know you all have a connection to Mr. Housley. This opportunity, though, USA Hockey now as a player hockey-wise, USA Hockey's been looking for a home, a United States home that can set the bar what they do in Canada and Europe, and they've chosen us to do that. And there's no better place. We've already planted the flag. We are the state of hockey. What started out, I believe, as just a motto or a marketing tool is no longer that. We are the state of hockey. And there's no better place and there's no better time. If this were 10 years ago, we weren't the right time. It's the right time now that this tournament's coming home. We're going to showcase it to the United States. We'll be a national player from the hockey standpoint. We'll have fans from all over the world that are here, but most important, we need the Minnesotans and the people in our region to fill our building and out-cheer the Canadians that show up here.
Thank you so very much. If you could stay with us just for a brief moment. Are you Wendy Blackshaw?
I'm not, no, I'm Sky Boucher.
Oh, Sky, okay.
Yes.
If you've already introduced yourself for the record, provide your 2 minutes of testimony, and
Okay.
welcome to the committee.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the rest of the committee. Many of you are probably familiar with my grandfather, Henry Boucher. Papa Henry was a superstar hockey player that led Warroad High School to a state championship in 1969. He competed for Team USA in international competition for 3 years, including the 1972 Olympics, where he brought home a silver medal from Japan. He also had a phenomenal professional career and broke down barriers as one of the first Native Americans to play in the NHL. To me and to many others in the Indigenous community and the hockey community, he is a legend, an icon. My grandfather was a great source of pride for our Anishinaabe communities, and he gave many of us the confidence to bring our voices to spaces where we were previously not represented. He made the game of hockey more inclusive, inspiring more Indigenous people, including myself, to learn and to play the sport. Even after retirement, he dedicated himself to introducing the game of hockey to underrepresented communities that otherwise would have not had access to the game. The upcoming World Junior Championship is going to help advance the legacy that my grandfather left and make sure hockey is for everyone. To expand beyond what many people think are closed walls of hockey, every month this year, Minnesota Sports and Events is organizing a community initiative that will benefit underserved communities here in Minnesota. I am here because this intentional engagement is not just important, it's essential. One of these initiatives is called Assist 26, and it will share the history and culture of our Indigenous communities by showcasing Native art, traditions, and showcasing the story of Native hockey players. The initiative will provide the ultimate tournament experience to Indigenous youth from across the state, to kids to attend the games, meet the World Junior alumni, and attend all of the Fan Fest activities. The World Juniors is so much more than just another sporting event. It's an international gathering of the hockey community and an opportunity to celebrate the best young players in the world. It's also an opportunity for our state to help shape the future of hockey, both here in Minnesota and beyond our borders. With your support, we can continue my Papa Henry's legacy and ensure hockey is for everyone. Miigwech.
Well, let me say thank you so much. And now we have joined with us Senator Frentz, who was in another hearing. And since he's here, he's going to give us some comments about this wonderful Senate file. And then we'll also go to his last testifier, who is Wendy Blackshaw, if Wendy Blackshaw is here. But we'll go to Senator Frentz. Senator Frentz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. Very proud to present to you Senate File 1061. I know you've heard some tremendous testimony. I do not come before your committee often asking for you to take hard-earned taxpayer dollars and invest them in an event, but I'm here today on behalf of World Juniors for some of the reasons you've already heard and some I want to share with you. The Jobs Committee has been a tremendous success asking this basic question, not just what does it cost, but what does it pay? This $5 million, this investment in this event is worth many, many times that. Our estimate is $75 million of economic impact. And while we can debate that, Mr. Chair and members, what we cannot debate is that hockey is unique, not only to the state of Minnesota, but to the metro area and our good friends in Minneapolis and St. Paul. You've probably heard a lot of the things that make Minnesota unique, but I cannot help, as a hockey parent of 4, to share with you what I've seen. There are 135 youth associations in Minnesota, what we call community-based hockey, where kids play for the city, the community, not for a private tuition-based as they do in other states. Not to judge those other states, but ask yourself, why is Minnesota #1 in producing men and women hockey players at the Division I level? Why is Minnesota #1 in producing National Hockey League players? It's because of that community-based start. Kids in other places have to pay $10,000, $15,000 just to play scored hockey. My oldest child went to Mites in his first year, 1998, not that I'm keeping track. $65 for the year for community services to skate for an hour. What does this event bring? Brings about 250,000 people from around the world. Other countries treat World Juniors a lot like we Americans tend to look at March Madness, which is, this is the best of the kids coming up. Mr. Chair, I know you have a lot of demands on your committee budget. I know you have a lot of great projects and events, but this one is not like the other projects in that Minnesota is at the top of the hockey food chain, and for that reason, the economic development aspect of this proposal is a great investment, and I think we could go on all day, Mr. Chair, but having just concluded my committee in Energy and Utilities early so I could run over here and see my friends testifying in support of the bill, I'll just leave it at that and say, I hope you'll look favorably on this when you consider how the Jobs Committee allocates its very valuable resources. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your indulgence on the schedule, too.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. And we're going to go to Wendy Blackshaw for her 2 minutes, and then we'll get to any questions that might be asked. But I know that the head coach of the University of Minnesota, I think he has to go, and they're posing for a picture right now. That's good. Good luck to the Gophers. Let me just say that. Go Gophers.
That's right.
All right, Ms. Blackshaw, for your 2 minutes of testimony.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee, my name is Wendy Blackshaw, and I am President and CEO of Minnesota Sports and Events. First, thank you to Chair Champion and Bill Author Herr and this committee for funding the U.S. gymnastics trials last summer. You made that $75 million economic impact happen. And with your support, gymnast Suni Lee was able to capture her spot on Team USA in front of her hometown fans. Thank you, Senator Frentz, for carrying this bill, and to Senators Miller, Housley, and Herr for your strong advocacy of our mission and events. Minnesota Sports and Events is a 501c6 organization which exists to uplift the state's economy, reputation, and quality of life through the attraction, promotion, and execution of world-class events. We always seek a public-private partnership for these events. Today, I'm here to talk hockey. The 50th anniversary of the World Juniors Hockey Championship will bring the best young hockey players in the world, representing 10 different countries, to compete in 29 games in Minneapolis and St. Paul. We anticipate hundreds of thousands of fans attending the games at Excel and 3M at Mariucci, and free fan fest in Rice Park and River Center. We are estimating a $75 million economic impact, which will bring in more than $5 million in tax revenue for the state. This is based on recent previous events. For example, gymnastics last summer generated $5.7 million in tax revenue for Minnesota. Unlike other states with competitive public funding packages for major events, we currently do not have an ongoing funding mechanism. So we are here today requesting $5 million to cover costs associated with hosting World Juniors. The public money in this bill is reinvested in Minnesota. State funding covers expenses that stay here, such as local union labor, public safety, permitting, and operations. Thank you very much to Chair Champion and the committee for your time. We hope you will consider our request, and we can't wait to show the world what the state of hockey is all about.
Thank you so very much. And with that being said, any questions from the committee? Senator Housley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill, Senator Frentz. It is so, so important, and I'm so excited for the World Junior Championships to come next December. Like they said, it was the beginning of my husband's career in 1982. He played for the World Junior Championship, and it was such a huge stage that that's when he actually got recognized. He was still a senior in high school, and then he got drafted right after that, and then the whole career started. So I want to thank the World Junior Championships for changing my life. But it is such a world stage for not just these players, but for Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Minnesota, because the games will be played not just here in the Twin Cities, but outside. I'm going to say this, Wendy, or Ms. Blackshaw, but in the beginning, when Minnesota Sports and Events started, it hasn't been around that long, and I was kind of like, who is this organization? What are they doing? What can they really bring to Minnesota? When I saw what they did for the Olympic gymnastics trials, and I went down there to see Minneapolis and to see the trials and see all of the things they had happening outside, I was absolutely blown away. And to see the economic impact that they brought all of these people to Minnesota, over 200,000 people, and then to have a $74 million impact with just the few million that we brought in state dollars to the event. And here with the World Junior Championships, with a $5 million investment, can bring over $75 million for our state. It's like a no-brainer, and every single project you guys touch is so, so successful that I really do, I want to thank you, because it's exciting. And you've got so many more coming up. You've got the WWE and the Big Ten and the NCAA, so many events coming up. I want to say tomorrow night is a big Team USA game. They're playing Team Canada. And if you turn your TV on, it's on everybody's TV, every single one of those guys that played for Team USA played in the World Junior Championships in the past 15, 20 years. So they all started there. And it's so important to U.S. hockey, well, to world hockey, but again, so important for the state of Minnesota, and you guys do such a great job. One question only for Mayor Carter. In the Mayor's Cup, who was your goalie that you guys won 3-0?
Mayor Carter.
Senator, I would have to check and get the name of that specific goalie and get back to you. I'm sorry, I do not recall the goalie's name in the Mayor's Cup.
Congratulations on that. But thank you, Senator Frentz, for bringing this bill. It is, and Mr. Chair, if I could, Ms. Blackshaw mentioned that there is no revenue stream, and I know you hate when this comes forward, but in Minnesota Sports and Events, they came in 23 and 24 to try and secure this for the World Junior Championships, and we almost lost it to another state. So I think it's important that we do look at successful organizations, nonprofits, that do have an economic impact with their events that they bring, that there can be a continuous revenue stream, so we don't miss out on some of the events going forward, because I know we have lost some going forward because we haven't been able to guarantee that. But this $5 million for this is absolutely needed. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Housley. Any other questions from the committee? Unless there's someone who wanted to say something. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Frentz, for bringing the bill forward. You know, I'm a huge sports fan, and probably the third biggest hockey fan in the room between you and Housley and then me, probably. But that's not why I support this proposal. It's because it makes fiscal sense, and it will be a shot in the arm to Minnesota economically, and I think that will ripple through to our colleges and help attract more kids to Minnesota to go to school here. And hopefully, if on a career path, you know, if Minnesota's mentioned, they will remember this tournament and other events like this. So I think, you know, a $5 million investment is a lot of money. We have a lot of nonprofits that would love to see that. But I do think this is guaranteed return. So I support it 100%, and I appreciate you bringing it forward. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Senator Herr.
Thank you, Chair Champion, and I appreciate Senator Frentz for letting me be co-author the bill. And so hockey is so far removed from my expertise, so I'm still slipping on the ring, and I'm not a skater, a skier, or anything on the ice, and also so far from my culture as well. But if I just look at the investment we give the nonprofit here, sport and event here from last time, it benefited us many fold, and so that already set up a good example. So I think that is worth to consider again for this investment. And having the mayor of St. Paul here, to testify, it resonates further than it has been. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Mayor Carter, since your name been brought up a couple times, perhaps you can have some closing words, and then we'll go to closing statement from Senator Frentz before we lay Senate file number 1061 over for possible inclusion. Mayor Carter.
Senator Champion, members of the committee, thank you so much. I apologize for having gone a couple of seconds, I believe, over my 2 minutes the first time. I recall that I started my timer late after I started talking, so I stand corrected. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation. This is an incredible opportunity, again, for St. Paul, but moreover for the state of Minnesota, as, of course, these games will be played not only in our city, but throughout our state. This is a fantastic opportunity to celebrate our existence as a state of hockey. It's a fantastic opportunity in a place I always joke that Minnesota is a state full of people who moved here for 2 years, 30 years ago, because they got here and had an experience here and found out that they loved it here. We look forward to showing that same hospitality to 250,000 people from across the globe who will be traveling here for this event. And we look forward to and appreciate your consideration of this critical help to help us make the most of the red carpet that we'll be able to roll out for our guests.
Senator Frentz, closing comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. I want to make 2 quick points. I want to thank the other testifiers, thank the mayor, thank Coach Moscow, thank Minnesota Sports and Events. First of all, we've talked about the role of hockey in Minnesota. I just want to make sure we cover this. The success Minnesota players have had in hockey has been mentioned here, Division I players, professional players. It is greater on the female side. Our dominance in women's hockey is greater than it is in men's hockey. We are talking about something that transcends gender here. Then the second thing, my friend Senator Herr, you may not have grown up with hockey, and neither did I, but our 4 kids sure took to it, is that there was a time when Senator Herr told this committee and told the Senate that we should invest in the Olympic trials, that trust us, it's going to go well, that this is a good use of of regular general fund dollars. And we weren't sure at that time whether that event would produce a success. We certainly had no guarantee that St. Paul's own Suni Lee would rise to the level she did. But that's what happens when we make these kinds of judgments, and it proved to be a huge success, and the World Junior Hockey Championships is right in that category. We don't know the name of the player who may rise up at that. It may not be an American, but it'll be some young person who will never forget their time. And like Senator Housley's spouse, we'll be talking about it decades later. I know you make a lot of tough decisions here on the Jobs Committee, and I appreciate that you have to make decisions and choices. I urge you to consider this funding request as one that you'll be proud of, not just tomorrow, next week, next month, but in 50 years. Thank you, members.
With that being said, Senate file number 1061 is laid over for possible inclusion. Members, we're going to go to Senator Klein, which is Senate file number 1300, and then followed by Senator Klein, we're going to go to the Workforce Board overview. But we're going to bring Senator Klein up. Welcome to the committee, Senator Klein. When you get, as you're getting settled, I'm going to ask Ms. Nomner to give us a sense of what the fiscal picture has looked like for Neighbors Incorporated, any grant appropriations that has been given this organization. Ms. Nomner.
Mr. Chair and committee members, to my knowledge, this program has not received jobs appropriations from the jobs budget. And I'll just say that the bill is proposing $750,000 a year, so in fiscal year 26 and 27. And as written currently, there isn't one-time language, so that's assumed to be ongoing.
Thank you so very much. Senator Klein, welcome to the committee. It's good to see you, Mr. Chair of Commerce. Good to see you here in Jobs. So if you'd be so kind as to give us a sense of this bill, and then introduce your testifiers. Senator Klein, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair and committee. I'm so honored to have been invited to the Jobs Committee to present Senate File 1300. I heard the dispute earlier between Brooklyn Park and Edina about a great program that they had there, but let me say that the people of Northern Dakota County have a program that is really iconic and unmatched in the state of Minnesota for its regional impact. Neighbors Incorporated has levels the playing field for Northern Dakota County with 3 core program areas. One is particularly of import to this committee, the Financial Empowerment Division, which provides career navigation and training, one-to-one financial coaching, financial and consumer education, and financial products and grants and asset and skill building to build family stability. The second portion is hunger relief, which provides a choice model food shelf, food delivery, and offsite food distributions, serving over 5,000 households in Northern Dakota County. And the last is community supports, which includes free or low-cost clothing and household items provided by a closet and thrift store, and a gift program for children in need. Members, it's hard to overstate how much impact Neighbors Incorporated has in Northern Dakota County to benefit those who need it the very most and funnel generosity to where it needs to be delivered. And with that, Mr. Chair, I thank the committee for considering the appropriation, and I have 2 testifiers.
Thank you, Senator Klein. And do you want me to go to Wambiki? If you introduce yourself for the record, you're the Executive Director for Neighbors Incorporated, and provide your 2 minutes of testimony. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senate members. My name is Dawn Wambeck, and I serve as the Executive Director with Neighbors, Inc. On behalf of Neighbors, I wish to extend our deep appreciation to Senator Klein and Senator Pappas for authoring our Workforce Direct Appropriations Bill. We are grateful for the opportunity to share our goal to create pathways out of poverty in partnership with the community that we're honored to serve. Our approach embodies a social capital lens and leverages the tremendous strength of a community who for over half of a century has provided thousands of volunteers and 50% of our support to ensure the immediate human rights needs of food, clothing, and community connections have been met. Today, the community stands ready to build on this beautiful foundation and launch Neighbors' next journey to ensure that all families have the opportunity for prosperity. With these funds, we seek to build our capacity to connect hundreds of low-income youth and adults to credential career training, high-quality employment opportunities, and long-term financial education services. Our focus is regional, including Dakota, Washington, and Ramsey counties. Through robust public and private partnerships and 325 and growing volunteers, we will connect the community to the tremendous array of doors that they simply need the opportunity to open. Our focus is person-centered and broad and includes all high-demand industries, including IT, healthcare, manufacturing, transportation, and the trade sectors. In partnering with businesses, community colleges, local nonprofits, and government, our goal is to connect our neighbors to family-sustaining careers while supporting the economic development of our community. As families' incomes grow, our financial services will support them to achieve their goals and dreams. As an example of a new business relationship, an environmental company is hiring drivers with no experience at $67,000 a year.
Sorry, your 2 minutes is up. So if there's one last line that you want to tell us, but we're at that moment. So if there's a last sentence you want us to know.
We know these transformative opportunities are there, and we thank you for your consideration in allowing Neighbors to partner with the great state of Minnesota to improve the well-being of our community for generations to come.
And if there's anything else that you want us to know, like it sounds like you're about to go into a story, which we can certainly appreciate, but you could provide that testimony by way of an email or something, and we'll certainly circulate it. We'll now go to Nazar. If you say your name for the record and provide us your 2 minutes of testimony. And welcome to the committee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senate member. My name is Nazar Tone, and I've been on the journey of the personal and professional growth since moving to Minnesota from California. As a single mom, as a 12-year-old autistic, I'm facing numerous challenges, but remaining determined to improve our life. In September 2024, I began using the Neighbor Inc. Food shop and then found their employment program, where I developed a plan to find a new job. I want to work at the elementary school or as a PCA dream started own business by purchasing food truck or restaurants, which Neighbor Inc. helped. I made a new resume and then granted the employment as a PCA early October, which this new employment, I wanted to be a better use my resources and begin budgeting and then planning my finance with my coach at Neighbors. And we discovered that I will be a good fit of a family assets for independence in Minnesota FAME program. And in November, I began saving to reach my dream of the purchasing the food truck and running my own business. In December, I made first deposit into this account. It will allow me to be saving for $4,000, which will be matched with the $12,000. Make a dream possible. My dream possible. My coach helped me get a started business development center to create the plan to the business ownership effort. I'm eager to continue on this on my journey, and I'm grateful for the help Neighbor Inc. has provided me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your testimony, and we
Yes.
appreciate you being here. Any questions for either Senator Klein or his testifiers for Senate File number 1300? Seeing none, Senator Klein, if you could give us your closing comments before we lay this bill over for possible inclusion. Senator Klein.
Mr. Chair, this is not the Junior Hockey League, and I know that's very glamorous and an important thing for the state of Minnesota, but this is real help to real people, as you have heard, and I'm so grateful for the indulgence of the committee.
Thank you so much. With that being said, Senate File number 1300 will be laid over for possible inclusion. We'll now go to the Workforce Board overview. It's my understanding that there is one member of the group that needs to leave immediately. So if you all could come up and you can provide us with your overview. Thank you for your patience this afternoon. Once you are settled, please feel free to begin.
Thank you, Chair Champion and members of the committee. My name is Kate Dewan. I serve as Executive Director for the Minnesota Association of Workforce Boards, and we represent all 16 local workforce boards across the state of Minnesota. We're very grateful to be with you all here today and for the opportunity to give this informational hearing about local workforce boards and the work that we do in the state. So we will jump in and start today with an overview of local workforce boards, how they're set up, how our funding works, before you hear about the services we provide from Elena Fauché, Operations Chair of our association, and the Director of Workforce Development for the City of Duluth, and then finally hearing about the value of workforce boards from the point of view of an employer. Rosemary Uboaja, a member of the Minneapolis Workforce Board and CEO of Nika Creative. So we will start by jumping into an overview. You will see on the slide a number of dates. Our country has been engaged in workforce development policy and programs for decades and decades. So this slide really just outlines the steps taken throughout history at the federal level, including the Workforce Investment Act in 1998 that first created the National Public Workforce Development System, which is implemented through our local workforce boards. It also includes the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, of 2014 that shapes our work today. You may be looking at this slide and thinking, uh-oh, am I back in my high school history class and will there be a quiz and should I have memorized all these dates? No, don't worry, we've got two main takeaways for you today. First, the work that local workforce boards do is congressionally created and very shaped by federal law. And then second, the structure created by that federal policy allows us to really leverage state and local resources to meet the needs of our unique communities. So let's talk about that structure and what it all means. We'll go through our charge as workforce boards, our design and membership, our partners, and our funding. So let's start with our charge. Local workforce boards' charge is to analyze local economic conditions and labor market data to guide the investment of public resources through this system and use strategies that work for unique local contexts. Local workforce boards really function as this interesting feedback loop for a national system that connects state and federal workforce efforts with that local level. And as local boards, we are tuned into our local context through the structure of our boards so that we can ensure the most effective and efficient use of public resources in our areas. How do we do that? Well, local workforce board membership is intentional about convening local stakeholders, private and public. Our membership is partially determined by federal law, but boards also include additional partners from their local areas. A big highlight from this slide as we talk about membership is that a core feature of our boards is the requirement to have a majority of local business leaders reflected on that board. So we are private sector led. And this public-private partnership equips boards to do the work that serves both employers and job seekers in each of our communities. So you'll see here a map, and the committee members, you should have this as well at your seats. Minnesota has 16 local workforce development areas, and each of those areas is represented by a board. So we serve every single corner of this state. And you'll see on your map that you can look up which areas are represented in your district. So those local workforce boards are creating directives and strategy. And when it comes to service delivery, local boards take different approaches. Some boards deliver services directly through city or county staff. Others contract out services through community-based organizations. Oftentimes, it's a mixture of both. So this is a decision made by local boards to meet the needs of their communities and be as responsive as possible. Local workforce boards serve tens of thousands of Minnesotans across the state each year. And here you'll see on this slide, we did feature 2 state-funded formula grants that we work with and are a part of deploying and the numbers that those serve. And I pulled those out because we'll talk a little bit more about them later. Partnership is a huge part of the work that we do as local workforce boards. We work closely with the state, especially the Department of Employment and Economic Development, or DEED. DEED is a strong partner for local workforce boards and a funder of the work that we do. One of the central ways we work is through the Career Force model. Career Force is a one-stop location for job seekers and employers to access services. It's both physical locations, which you can see on your maps with the dots, and then you also can access services online. We also work with the Department of Labor and Industry, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, Minnesota Department of Education with the Adult Basic Education Department, and the Department of Corrections. Our partnerships go beyond that as well. They, of course, extend into community and include large employers, small businesses, community-based organizations, labor, education, and more. When it comes to funding, local workforce boards use a variety of different funding streams, including federal, state, and local. To give you an example of a typical workforce board's funding pie chart, I'll talk about Duluth. Duluth has 22% funding from the federal level, 45% from the state level, and 23% from the local level. And one big dynamic that we are facing across the state for all the local boards that represent your areas is that we've seen decreases in this federal funding over time. In Southeast Minnesota, only 9% of their budget is from federal funding. So federal funding is declining at a time when layoffs are increasing. We're also seeing significant demographic shifts and workforce shortages. You may have heard this stat. Currently, Minnesota has only 6 job seekers for every 10 job vacancies. We really need a concerted, intentional response to that. And local workforce boards are positioned on the ground to be strong partners in that work. So our work goes far beyond what's federally funded, and we're able to deploy state resources at the local level quickly, efficiently, and effectively. A unique part of our work, an important part of our work, is that we are responsible for meeting strict performance measures. You'll see some of the measures that we report on listed on this slide. And workforce boards go through detailed monitoring by deed annually for each grant that we receive, among other different types of monitoring, including federal. So we conduct the same level of monitoring for our sub-grantees. With that, with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to Elena to talk about the work that we do.
Welcome to the committee. Identify yourself for the record and go forward with your presentation.
Thank you, Chair Champion and members of the committee, for the opportunity to present to you today. My name is Elena Fauché. I'm the Director of Workforce Development for the City of Duluth and the Chair of the Minnesota Association of Workforce Boards. I'll offer a summary of the work that we do for our 3 main customer groups: youth and young adults, job seekers of all types and ages, educational levels and stages in their career, and employers. In sum, we are Minnesota's public workforce system. Through our work, local boards face Minnesota's workforce challenges head-on. We work with youth and job seekers to overcome barriers to accessing and completing training and education, raise awareness of high-wage, high-demand occupations and pathways to access them, and assist in navigating housing, childcare, transportation, and other barriers so individuals can enter and retain employment. We also work with employers to develop strategies to attract and retain workers, adapt to changing workforce demographics, support skill development and alignment with employer needs, and develop work readiness skills among job seekers. Workforce services are free and available to everyone anywhere in the state. Additionally, our programs offer more intensive individualized services to those that need them. I wanted to point out or make the point that it's critically important that any investments the state makes in workforce development align and coordinate with local workforce boards. We're experts, we're conveners, we're coordinators at the local level, and we're entities with the fingers on the pulse of what employers need and what job seekers need to meet each other and find employment. Okay, so first, our youth programming. We serve youth and young adults between the ages of 18 and 24, and this is some of our most impactful work. Youth program staff bring career exploration and work readiness into high schools, as well as providing one-on-one supports to students, particularly those not at risk of not graduating. This helps fill in gaps in what schools are able to provide in terms of college and career readiness, which is particularly important for rural and smaller school districts. Out-of-school youth include those who graduated and those who didn't. We provide guidance in career counseling, support in accessing education and training, and work readiness skill development. One of the most significant parts of our work with youth is offering paid work experience opportunities through the private sector, nonprofit, and local government partners. For job seekers, everyone is welcome at local workforce centers, also known as career force locations like Kate mentioned. Customers can drop in, use computers in our computer lab to work on their resumes, search or apply for jobs, or apply for unemployment insurance. Patient, caring staff are on hand to assist, which often includes over-the-shoulder digital literacy training and navigating some of life's most difficult challenges. Those who want more intensive individualized assistance can enroll in one of our programs where they receive one-on-one career counseling, training and tuition assistance, job search, and support services. Employers are also key customers. We help employers recruit through job fairs and hiring events and helping build connections with training programs. We support employee retention and DEI work by sharing best practices, offering resources, and hosting training workshops. Through incumbent worker training, we support skill development for current employees to help them advance and increase wages and to help businesses grow and add jobs or avert layoffs.
As employers take on increasing responsibility for training, we offer access to resources through on-the-job training, paid internships or work experience, and design of work-based learning, including apprenticeship programs. We have many, many success stories, and I'll briefly share two before I hand it over to Rosemary. This picture is Edward from South Central Workforce Council. Edward was let go from a manufacturing job in 2022 and decided that that was the moment to pursue his dream of becoming a barber. He recognized that southern Minnesota desperately lacked skilled barbers and hoped to fill this gap by opening up his own shop. However, when Edward enrolled in training, he discovered the cost was $8,500 with no financial aid available. In addition, he had to drive 200 miles round trip 5 days a week to attend training. So he began exploring options and enrolled in the Dislocated Worker Program, where he worked with a counselor to research his chosen career, figure out how to pay for training, and got some help with training costs and transportation. He also was connected to small business advisors to help him learn about being a business owner. After 10 months of training, he received his barber's license, opened up his own shop called Ed's Chop Shop, which is now a host site for youth work experience participants and New Ulm's go-to places for haircuts. He's looking forward to expanding his business and hiring additional staff in the future. I also wanted to briefly share a story of a participant in one of our programs up in Duluth. We recently finished an Intro to Human Services training class hosted in partnership with Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College and local community-based organizations serving the unhoused and those recovering from addiction. One participant, who I'll call Sarah, had experienced trauma working in healthcare during the COVID pandemic, had gotten a different job with a utility, and was then laid off from that job. She was overwhelmed, lacked any family support, and was considering ending her life. Instead, she enrolled in our Intro to Human Services training class, where she learned the basics of case management and explored various job opportunities through local community organizations. More than this, she found direction and purpose and greatly benefited from the support provided by her job counselor. Sarah graduated from training feeling confident and is now back working in healthcare at a hospital, earning more than $25 an hour. These are just two examples of the many people local workforce boards serve. We're proud of the work we do and the impact we have on the individuals, employers, and communities we serve. And now I'll hand it over to Rosemary, who is a board member in Minneapolis.
Good afternoon, Chair Champion and members of the committee.
Welcome to the committee.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today about the critical role of local workforce boards and the impact they have on both businesses and the community. My name is Rosemary Okwaja. I am founder and CEO of NACA Creative, a brand development firm located in Minneapolis. I joined the Minneapolis Workforce Board in July of last year. As a business owner, I know firsthand that a strong, skilled, and diverse workforce isn't just a nice to have, it's essential for business success. That's why I volunteer on our local board. Our economy depends on ensuring that businesses can find the talent they need and that workers, especially those from underrepresented communities, can access meaningful career opportunities. The Minneapolis Workforce Development Board plays a critical role in connecting job seekers with employers and ensuring that our workforce meets the needs of a changing economy. Our work includes career pathway training that helps job seekers earn credentials for in-demand industries, rapid employment services for people who are laid off for no fault of their own, support for small and mid-sized businesses looking to attract and retain talent, and services tailored to underrepresented groups, such as immigrants or people living with disabilities. One of the most powerful examples of the work is the Step Up program. It is a nationally recognized program for youth. Step Up doesn't just provide jobs, it builds the future workforce. Young people in Minneapolis gain paid career experience, develop critical professional skills, and establish connections that set them on a path for success. In 2024, The Step Up program served just over 1,000 young people. 82% or 86% of those were from low-income families. 93% were youth of color, and 22% of those youth are living with a disability. As a business owner, I can see the direct impact of programs such as Step Up. When young people gain early exposure to the workplace, they develop skills and confidence that makes them motivated and stronger candidates for future jobs. Businesses, in turn, benefit from a diverse talent work pool. In fact, some Step Up interns have become employers in the program as well. Our partnership with the state is critical in ensuring that workforce programs remain responsive to business needs and the economic shifts. As the job market evolves, we need continued investment in these programs, not only to support workers, but also to strengthen our businesses and our community at large. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to workforce development in Minneapolis and the state overall.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for your testimony. We sincerely appreciate it. Any questions for the board? Any questions around the local workforce boards? Anyone? I do have a couple questions, seeing that the committee has tons of questions. I'm going to ask a question too. I recognize that you looked at the funding source and you said that there are 3 different sources of revenue. Can you give us a sense of what your concerns might be, if any, if you don't get any support from the federal government, and how do you anticipate filling that hole, number one? And number two, well, maybe let's start with that question. Oh, and my second question was going to be, and what is the current state appropriation that you all receive?
I think I'll hand it to Elena to speak to the funding question first, if that's all right, Mr. Chair.
That's okay. Identify yourself for the record and then answer the question. Thank you.
Yeah, so Chair Champion, Senators, thank you. So again, Elena Fauché, the Director of Workforce Development for the City of Duluth and the Chair of the Minnesota Association of Workforce Boards. Our federal funding, as Kate mentioned before, has been declining for a number of years, not just in the last couple of years. This has been going on for a number of years. So it's a smaller and smaller share of support of the work we do. The policy framework that we operate under still exists. So more and more we're having to comply with the policy framework without the federal support to do it as well as we would like to. Fortunately, the state of Minnesota invests in workforce development through the Workforce Development Fund and general fund resources. And so we really depend on some of those state resources to be able to do our best work and be responsive to the needs of employers. And do you want to talk about?
Yes, as far as regarding the question of total appropriations going to local workforce boards,
yes.
I'll ask you to fill in anything you think I miss. But from what I understand, it would differ from board to board because it's a mixture of formula grants that we receive funding through, and then also we do apply for some competitive grants. So Drive for 5 would be one example of one of those programs. So it depends from board to board. However, I can give you one example. A big program that we're a part of implementing is the Minnesota Youth Program. And that has a base of around $4 million per year. This biennium, it was increased with a one-time appropriation for an additional $4.5 million out of general fund. That'll go back down to $4 million without an effort to have ongoing funding, which is one of our priorities this year. But that's just one example.
Thank you so much. Any other questions for the board? Senator Pa.
Thank you, Chair Champion. So I did have a question, but I thought, oh, maybe I'll skip it in case other people had questions. And then when no one did, I thought, oh, well, I guess I could take the time. I'm wondering, as a workforce board, what your thoughts are, or maybe plans are, in preparing our youth and dislocated workers for the future of AI, like AI literacy. I know we were just talking about that in this committee a few weeks ago, and I'm super interested in AI, okay? So that's one of my thing I do on the side where I just really want to learn everything about it. But I'm wondering if you're doing anything specifically around preparedness or awareness or any kind of training around AI and making sure that our young people are AI literate and, just that's going to be our future. So how are you incorporating that if you are at all?
Yeah.
To the testifiers, identify yourself for the record and then answer the question. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair Champion, Senator Elena Fauché again. This is something we talk about AI a lot. I would say our staff are certainly using it as a tool to assist with case management. But for youth and for job seekers, really what we're talking about is, we would call it a 21st century skill. It's kind of this base skill of being able to learn new technologies and incorporate them into your work. And to be able to do that, you need, number one, basic digital literacy. And that is, there is a huge digital literacy gap across the state, particularly among older adults, low-income youth. So it's sort of getting everyone to just a baseline of digital literacy and being able to use a computer and learn software programs, learn new technology. And then there's the next level skill, which is, now how do you quickly learn this new technology and apply it to your work? And that is a skill that is learned by doing. And so it's built into training programs. It's certainly built into paid work experience. That's where that work experience is really critical. For example, I have an intern right now who's a college student intern who is enrolled with one of our programs and wasn't really familiar with using Excel. Excel is something that I use all the time in my job, right? And so I assigned her a project where she would have to learn how to use Excel and then use it in sort of a next level way, not just to enter information into a spreadsheet, but create charts, use those charts in a presentation, right? So it's sort of by doing, she's learning this next level skill that is, the next time she has to learn a new computer program or tool, she'll have gone through that process once and know how to go about it and know kind of the step. It involved watching YouTube videos and sitting down with me and so on. And so that's kind of how we're going about that work.
Any more questions before we go to our next bill? We have a couple more bills left. Seeing none, thank you so very much. Thank you to each of you for your testimony. If there's any additional information you want the committee to have, please feel free to submit it to our committee administrator, and we can go from there. Thank you so very much, and have a great, great day.
Thank you.
We now go to Senator Draheim. And Senator Draheim, we're going to start with Senate file number 227. I know that on our agenda, it has number 6 as Senate file 240. That should actually be 227, and then number 7 would be 240. So we'll start with Senate file number 227. When you're ready, Senator Draheim, go forward.
Thank you, Chair Champion and members. So I have two bills today. The first one being Senate File 227, and this is a tax stress city demolition grant program. So to have a property that would qualify, it would have to be located in a tax stress city. And I have the definition of that if members are curious on how they calculate that definition of a tax-strapped city. More or less a city with not a lot of tax base. So this would be the greatest need cities that can't afford to do much because they don't have a lot of tax base. So all structures on the property have been vacant for at least 1 year to qualify for this program. All structures on the property to be a threat to public safety because of inadequate maintenance or abandonment, etc. None of the properties can be listed in the National Register of Historic Places. And the tax stress cities can be found under 275.08, but it means a statutory of a home rural charter city with a net tax capacity tax rate as defined in that section greater than or equal to 125% for tax payable in the previous calendar year, which I'm sure everybody was just dying to know that. And then it's a 50-50 match program under 2.1. And they're going to have to apply, and there's some rules on what to apply. There's some reporting requirements, and there is an ask, Mr. Chair. And the ask is $2.246 million each year.
So Senator Draheim, I'm going to ask Ms. Noner to give us a sense of what's been the fiscal ask in the past, and just to make sure that we're clear as to what's being asked in this bill. Ms. Noner.
Mr. Chair and committee members, to my knowledge, this bill has not had previous funding for this type of program from the Jobs Committee. And then the funding in the bill on page 3 is providing for $2.246 million in fiscal year 26 and the same amount in fiscal year 27. And there isn't mention of one-time funding, so that funding is assumed to be ongoing.
So Senator Draheim, is your intention for this to be ongoing, number one, and number two, where and how did you come up with $2.246 million for each fiscal year?
Thank you, Chair. And, you know, I know the budget's tight, and I know you're going to have to make some tough decisions moving forward, you know, as why the number. And I don't know if you've ever been involved in a demolition project in the costs. You know, a lot of these buildings sit empty for years, and they become problem locations or problem properties for illicit activity, and most of them aren't safe for people to be running in and out of them, for kids and adults. And that's kind of why the number is definitely available to go up if you chose to do that, or go down. You know, obviously we'll be able to serve more communities with the bigger the number. I think there is a constant need, and I think your own city, you know, experienced some horrible destruction a few years back, and a lot of those buildings had to be torn down. And it's a lot easier to sell a property with the building gone than a partial building or unsafe building there. So it is redevelopment, and that's why I think it belongs here. But there's no math behind the number, no magic math.
Ms. Noner.
Mr. Chair and committee members, just with the mention of redevelopment, I thought I'd mention there is some redevelopment money in the base funding for DEED. It's just a redevelopment grant program. I could look into the details a little bit more, but that's provided the 2.246. Maybe you already mentioned that. Sorry if I missed it. But that is currently in the base for a larger grant program.
Thank you, Ms. Noner. Any other questions for Senator Draheim for Senate File number 227? Senator Pott.
Thank you, Chair Champion. I was just wondering if there was like a cap of what amount could be given to any one project in here. I know that the match is 50%, but let's just say a city applies for the entire amount. So I'm just wondering if there's a cap that you were thinking, or if there's one already in here.
Senator Draheim, to the question.
Thank you, Chair Champion and Senator Pa. I do not believe there is any language, I'd have to ask nonpartisan, but I do not remember any language in here that would limit the total amount. It is a good point. You know, I think the intent is to have it to the cities that need it the most first. So I think a lot of cities that probably have other means to do it. So it'd be the poorer cities. I know in my district, most of my cities would probably qualify for this definition, and they all have buildings that have been sitting empty for years, if not decades. But I could go to nonpartisan too if I could. Chair.
Yes, so I was going to go to Ms. Doe Fontaine to ask if there's any language currently in the bill that would limit a cap per project.
Mr. Chair and members, I do not see any language right now that would limit the grant amount, but certainly that's something that we include regularly in grants, and for the redevelopment program, I think there's probably a max amount. So, you know, depending on if it's 2.2 million and you want, you know, 20 grants to go out, then you know, cap it at $1 million or whatever, something like that. So we could certainly work with the author if it's going to be included in omnibus.
Any other questions? Any other follow-up? Senator Pobb, before we go to Senator Housley.
Thank you, Chair Champion. I just want to say that I think this is a great bill. I know I can see many cities that could use these dollars to do exactly what you described. Just that one, making sure that that the money is spread out to several projects, and so possibly a cap could be something considered, because I could see easily how one city could take up this entire amount with just one project even, or two projects. But yes, I do support this. I think it is a great bill. Thank you.
Senator Housley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Pa and I sat in the Capital Investment Committee yesterday, and each testifier came up saying they needed money for demolition. Like it's a real thing. So I really do like your bill, Senator Draheim, because some of these buildings, they do become a threat to public safety, and each year that goes, the worse it gets. So I like your bill. I hope we can figure out some way to fund it. So thank you.
Senator Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing this forward, Senator Draheim. My question is, how many cities would take advantage of this per se if we pass this funding?
Senator Draheim.
That's a very good question. I think most cities have a need. You know, and I'm very happy to put some language in there to limit it. So, you know, one project per year or a dollar amount, I have no problem with that. I just know if you want redevelopment, you have to get rid of the blight first. And, you know, as a parent, you worry about your kids. And I know as a young man myself, if there was an abandoned building, we were there. You know, and you want to keep your community safe. And, you know, sometimes the owner of the building can't afford it or lets it go back to the city because it doesn't have any value. Sometimes the cost of the demolition to haul away the former building and equipment inside costs more than it's worth. So this is a way to offset it. There's still skin in the game with the 50-50 match. But I don't have a quantified number, but thanks for the question.
Any other follow-up? Any other follow-up? Seeing none, Senator Draheim, you can give us closing comments before we lay Senate file number 227 on the table for possible inclusion. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair and members. Thanks for the questions. I do have room on the bill if others want to jump on to the bill. That would be wonderful. But I just appreciate the opportunity to plead the case for the project. So thank you.
With that being said, Senate file number 227 will be laid over for possible inclusion. Members, we'll now look at Senate file number 240, which is also a Senator Draheim bill, which is grant prohibitions to nonprofit organizations with highly compensated officers or employees. Senator Draheim, to your bill, and it looks like you have one testifier, Marie Ellis. If she could come up and join you at the table, that would be great. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair Champion and members. So this bill idea isn't my first time having this concept talked about. And, you know, I just thought this year was a good year to bring it back and have that discussion as our funds are tightening up. Chair Champion, you're going to have a tougher time deciding on what nonprofits get funded and what get passed over. So I want to help you. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to make sure whatever we decide to fund as a body, like it or not, whatever gets passed, should go to the use or the intended use of the bill that we include. And I don't think our committee has a big a problem with this as some others do. You know, we all get to serve on many different committees and hear different stories and dig into different topics. You know, when I ran a report on nonprofit pay, some of the CEOs are getting millions of dollars. And I have a hard time giving money to a nonprofit that can afford to pay their CEO that much when we have other nonprofits that are begging for money. So members, Senate File 240 just goes off of the compensation for the executive officers off of the governor's salary. I do, and I will admit, that that's a little vague on what the governor's salary is. So if you look at the governor's salary, it's just about $150. If you look at total compensation, most of the numbers I read about are a little over or real close to $210,000 a year. So by my math, the base salary at $150, compensation for an executive running a nonprofit that gets funding through this committee would be $187,500. If we use the total compensation, it would be $262,500. So obviously the numbers can be massaged. There are other ways to calculate it. And I had someone approach me this morning that said, well, you should do it off the pay of everybody that works for the nonprofit. Well, there are nonprofits that only have one employee, the CEO. So how would you do that? But I am open to all ideas. So I hopefully we'll have a good discussion on this. So like I said, it's 12-month salary, 125% max off the governor's pay. Compensation is based on, includes salary, bonuses, any stock options, which normally they don't have that, the value of employee benefits, employer contributions to retirement, deferred compensation, et cetera. And that could be found on lines 1.17 through 1.20. When I tried to look up if there was an average pay for nonprofits in Minnesota, Chair, the only thing I could really find was your city, Minneapolis. And the average pay for a nonprofit CEO in Minneapolis is $165,000 in the article that I could find. In that, it gave a range of the 25 percentile at $98,000 and the 75 percentile at $198,000. So the average being $165,000. So I think I'm pretty close to here. I think it's a topic that we need to discuss. As a whole body, I think we really have to look at compensation for nonprofits and how we define nonprofits. In the health and human service area, you find a ton of nonprofits that pay their executives millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I remember sitting on one committee where the 16 top executives in one nonprofit that made $32 million. Is that really a nonprofit? And I know we're not here to discuss the definition of a nonprofit today, Chair, but I know we do have a little sliver that you control as Chair. This is my idea to help control that and make sure the funds go to what the intended use is.
Thank you, Senator Draheim. We have two testifiers, and then Senator Hurd, once we get those two testifiers through, then we can ask questions as a committee. We have Marie Ellis, who is testifying in opposition to the bill. Ms. Ellis, if you, Marie Ellis, if you'd be so kind as to identify yourself for the record and provide us your 2 minutes of testimony.
Thank you, Chair Champion, members of the committee. My name is Marie Ellis, and I'm here representing Minnesota's nonprofit sector through the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits. We have about 2,200 nonprofit members across the state. The Minnesota Council of Nonprofits opposes Senate File 240. Nonprofits partner with the state to deliver critical services while employing talented professionals who ensure their effectiveness and sustainability. Just like any other sector, attracting and retaining experienced leaders requires the ability to offer competitive compensation that reflects the demands of the jobs and the broader labor market. Each nonprofit's board of directors, guided by IRS regulations requiring independence and fairness, determines executive compensation using objective market data to ensure appropriateness and accountability. The charitable nonprofit sector is a highly regulated and transparent segment of the U.S. economy. Our public disclosures of revenues, expenses, salaries, and more through the annual IRS Form 990 is publicly available online at no cost through GuideStar and other websites. Compensating executives and staff in line with the labor market only makes sense as we expect nonprofits to deliver high-quality services that meet public, financial, and private standards of scrutiny. We ask that you oppose Senate File 240 and ensure that nonprofits have the appropriate tools to run their organizations in responsible, efficient, and transparent ways. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so very much. We'll now go to Jonathan Murray, who is approaching the podium. And once you are settled there, Mr. Murray, if you'd be so kind as to state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Jonathan Murray, any pronouns, and I'm here to testify in opposition to the Senate File 240.
And Mr. Murray, will you lift up the mic there so we can hear you? There you go.
Absolutely. I'm here to testify in opposition to Senate File 240 for similar concerns that you've heard about hiring talented employees. However, I'm here to testify specifically in concern because if you face a disability, there is an earning penalty according to the Federal Reserve's most recent report on January 10th of between about 10 to 70% of your income. To hire a talented professional in the industry who has a disability and compensate them so that they can have the same standard of living, you are going to have to pay them at a higher rate than the governor's salary simply to pay their catastrophic medical costs in some cases. I was in a room full of nonprofit professionals as one of the individuals living in mandated poverty for health insurance under MA a couple of years ago. The room was full of people who were well compensated. I don't disagree that nonprofit salaries can be inequitable or like that they can be imbalanced, but I encourage you to explore the matter. However, you need to be able to hire talented and people with the lived experience who serve their communities. And I would encourage you to explore how you can have the communities enforce and control before you look at capping salaries. Thank you
so
for
very
your time.
much. Thank you so very much for being here. If there's anything else you want us to know to either of the testifiers that you were not able to say today, please feel free to send that to our committee administrator, Tom Melton, and we'll make sure that information is circulated to the committee. Senator Hurd, you had your hand up. Is there a question for any of the testifiers, including but not limited to Senator Draheim?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Champion. And I'm glad to hear that Senator Draheim is open for ideas. And I think we might be open a can of worms here that needs to be well composed. And if we're just aiming for nonprofit alone, that might not be fair because private entity or for-profit entity do get state funding too. I know that inequity happen due to management get paid much more than mid-level worker or low entry level, and we do see that inequity there. But let's figure a way out so that it's fair for all, so we can reduce disparity within that. And I would want to talk to you more so that we can find a solution to reduce inequity, especially if we want to just aim for nonprofit, I don't think it's fair. We should look at those for-profit that are getting state dollars, how much the CEO or large nonprofit. That CEO, when I look at their salary, it would take me 100 years just to make that amount of money. So there's large, if we go this, I don't think this legislation is ready for prime time. You know, maybe I'm open to talk to you more about it, and we can see if there's more fair route than just, you know, narrow or cherry picking or narrow to just the nonprofit sector. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hur. Any, Senator Draheim?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Hur, for your comments, and to both testifiers. This is an open discussion, or it should be an open discussion. So the difference, you know, in this case between the profit and nonprofit, the for-profit companies pay property taxes. They also pay income taxes or corporate taxes, where nonprofits don't. And out of the Workforce Development Fund, I would guess 99.99% are nonprofits. And that's what this bill goes after. If you read lines 1.10, grants under any economic development or workforce development program. And corporations do pay into that. So that is part of why it's narrowed to this. I think nonprofits play an important role in our society. They do a lot of good work. But by definition, they're a nonprofit. And they could do whatever they want if they don't come and ask money from us. And when we have a whole bunch of groups, we heard from a bunch of groups today, last week, every week, we've heard a lot of good little nonprofits that are begging for money. And Chair Champion's not going to be able to give them all the money they want. Be lucky to get 10% of what they want. That's why I want to ensure whatever we do fund, the money is being used for the intent of whatever program they have. And by controlling the pay, I think we ensure that most of it does go towards whatever they're intending. Now, the average pay of the average Minnesotan is $52,000 a year. So I think if you go back to your districts and you say the average pay is $52,000 per person, and you say, okay, we're going to do 4 or 5 times that multiple to cap executive pay of what the average person in your district makes, I think they would agree that's a good idea. So I appreciate the hearing, Chair Champion. I know this is a tough one, but I think of all years, the next 2 bienniums are going to be tough. And we need to ensure for our taxpayers that we're using all the funds for the intended purpose. And I think serving, Senator Hur, you've served longer than I have. You're giving back, you know, serving. I'm sure you could make more in the private sector than you could here. And Chair Champion, especially, you know, you spend a lot of time here, and that takes away from doing other things where you could get paid a higher rate than what we get paid. And that is our form of giving back, in my opinion. And I think that's what the nonprofit was designed for, was giving back to society. And if you read IRS code, that's what they talk about. And there was just a report, if I could do one more thing and then I'll wrap up, Chair. There was just a report, community benefit from our friends here, just came out today from the OLA office evaluating nonprofits. This is not in our committee, but it's an interesting concept. And it's just timely. It happened to come out today. So I think we're not the only committee looking at this. Thanks for your time, Chair.
And members, just so that you know, we have one more bill up, and we have 2 people who wants to speak. Senator Muhammad has a question, and then we'll go to Senator Pratt.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I came back just for these bills. So I think my question is, Senator Draheim, how do we, I think what you're asking is for, okay, how do we make sure as the legislature that this is something that a nonprofit is actually following if we were to follow through with this?
Senator Draheim.
Yeah, I think the easiest way is the 990. Probably, like the testifier stated, there is a lot of paperwork required to keep up legitimate nonprofit, and that is the 980, which the chair has been doing a great job of providing us on the committee. And I think the next bill has a 990 in our packets. So I think there's information out there. So if they weren't coming here and asking for our tax dollars for good reasons. I'm not, most groups that come in, I understand where they're coming from and what they're trying to accomplish. So it's not a debate about that. It's always about priorities for the chair to decide what to fund. But what are the dollars really going for? Are they going to where we're intending them to go? And that's what I'm trying to just reel in a little bit. And I think the majority of nonprofits are doing the right thing. And the stats that I could find, which were for the city of Minneapolis, all indicate that the majority of the nonprofits would fit in to what my bill states. So it would be no change for at least 75% of them.
Any follow-up before we go to Senator Pratt?
Thank you for bringing this forward. I think this is also something I'm hoping that we can work on together. I 100% see where you're sort of coming through on this issue. I think the individual who's running the organization should not be taking the majority of the profit. It should be going back to the purpose and the reason it's meant for. So thank you for bringing this forward. It's not something I oppose. I just hope we can work on it together.
Senator Pratt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And a lot of what I was going to say has already been touched on. We're not trying to limit the compensation for nonprofits at all, just if they want to do business with the state. And if they're doing business with the state or meeting a state function, like many do, then they should follow the state salary guidelines. We cap the compensation for our commissioners and their folks, and we typically tie that to the salary of the governor. So I appreciate Senator Draheim bringing this. It's been a conversation for a number of years, and I think it's about time that we really look seriously at this to make sure that, as Senator Draheim said, the money that we're appropriating, the taxpayer funds that we're using to help lift up Minnesotans, is actually going to lift up those that need it most. If a nonprofit has the resources to make the kind of salary decisions that some are, then maybe they don't need the state support, or maybe we look at it in a different way. And so thank you, Mr. Chair, for holding this hearing.
Thank you so very much. Closing comments, Senator Draheim, before we lay 240 on the table for possible inclusion. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair, and I just want to thank you again for having the hearing and having the discussion. And I am open to ideas on this. I think we need to tighten up the salary definition a little bit, and some other things could be tightened up too. But Senator Pratt mentioned what I was going to mention in my closing remarks about the commissioners. So here we have the governor who's running the whole state. What is there, 35,000 employees? And his commissioners help him run that. And they all have salary caps. And there is a way to get an exemption for state employees to get more than the governor or commissioner. But I think there needs to be a baseline. And here we're telling our own state agencies, who dole out a heck of a lot more than what we're funding nonprofits, that you're going to be capped at this. And I do think most of the commissioners that do come in do it because they believe in whatever subject matter they're doing, like nonprofits. They usually work for a nonprofit because they're passionate about the subject. I get that. So the difference between a profit and a nonprofit is that most for-profit corporations don't come and ask for money from us. especially from this fund, Chair, that's listed in the bill that you will determine how we spend. So that's my ask. I just hope we can get something done this year. If it isn't this, I would be happy to work with any of you on a different idea. So thank you, Chair.
With that being said, Senate File number 240 is laid on the table for possible inclusion. Thank you, Senator Draheim, and thank you to the testifiers. Next, we will have Senator Putnam presenting Senate File 800. Senator Putnam, please come forward, and once you are ready, go forward. But before that, I'm going to ask Ms. Noner to tell us give us a sense of the fiscal picture. Ms. Noner.
Mr. Chair and members.
I'm a co-author.
Looking at the past two biennia for Equaspace, there hasn't been any funding from the jobs budget. And then I'll just say Senate File 800 proposes $250,000 in one-time funding in fiscal year 2026.
Thank you so very much. Okay, Senator Putnam, you can go forward with your testimony, and then once you're ready, introduce your testifier. Senator Putnam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing this bill. We did discuss this last session as well. I'm grateful to have another opportunity to talk to you about this important concern, and also grateful for Senator Draheim's support with this bill as well. We know these are difficult times and people are struggling. Just a quick anecdote, a couple days ago I was at the Target on University Avenue, and the toothpaste is locked up in a box, in a glass case now, because that's what people are stealing. The toothpaste, something that basic that needed. People are struggling, but government can't solve everyone's problems. More so than ever, we see ourselves faced with the need for local, flexible help for the people of our state, and that help often takes the form of nonprofits. For those reasons, awareness of novel issues and their scope and the need for a local, non-governmental solution, we have to rely on strong and reliable nonprofit organizations. Now, realizing this need under the leadership of you, Mr. Chair, and the Jobs and Economic Development Committee, we've invested in a number of existing nonprofits directly, but we've also realized that new organizations are appearing and doing local good. So we've supported programs like Propel, a nonprofit that helps mentor new organizations. Today, we have an opportunity to build on that investment and address the other side of this coin, the other kind of infrastructural support to make sure that our nonprofit sector is stable and able to help people. Senate File 800 appropriates $250,000 from the Workforce Development Fund to Equaspace, a nonprofit center in St. Paul, to provide services such as IT, accounting, and human resources to small and startup nonprofit organizations. By providing increased access to accounting services, this appropriation will also provide for greater accountability and more reliable reporting from our nonprofit sector. And I also want to say just briefly, Mr. Chair and members, I visited Equaspace. It's a beautiful, beautiful space. I was able to witness firsthand how these different organizations were working together and sharing ideas and sharing resources and sharing accountability, working to make themselves more stable and more able to help their communities. These are good folks doing good stuff, and Equaspace creates those connections and enables that stability and accountability. Today, we have with us Sarah Klein, the Executive Director of Equaspace, and she can provide some more details for what they do.
Welcome to the committee. Identify yourself for the record and provide your 2 minutes of testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Champion and members of the committee. My name is Sarah Klein. I am the Executive Director of Equaspace, and I'm here in support of Senate File 800. Second, I want to thank Senator Draheim for signing on to our bill, and I just want to add that my compensation falls in line with your bill and also reflects my 20-plus years of experience in the sector in leadership roles. Equaspace is a resource hub that supports nonprofit organizations by offering affordable, high-functioning workspaces and essential operational support. We have created a collaborative environment where leaders and teams can share resources, knowledge, and expertise, helping organizations strengthen their operations and achieve their goals more effectively. By providing proximity to other nonprofits, we create efficiencies that allow small and mid-sized organizations to meet the same standards as larger organizations, despite having fewer resources. Equaspace offers a range of critical services, including IT support, professional development, and shared meeting spaces, all designed to help nonprofits streamline their operations and better serve their communities. Importantly, Equaspace helps reduce the risk of fraud, waste, and abuse by ensuring that leaders and teams have access to the resources they need to comply with local, state, and federal regulations. This enables organizations to maintain accountability, transparency, and efficiency in their work. Investing in Equaspace is an investment in the future success of the groups and initiatives that strengthen our state. By providing the support and infrastructure these organizations need, we're helping them fulfill their missions more effectively, create jobs, and contribute to the economic well-being of our communities. Funding Equaspace will lead to stronger, more sustainable organizations that are equipped to make a meaningful impact across the state. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Any questions for Ms. Klein or Senator Putnam? Senator Housley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Putnam, for bringing this bill forward. One of the organizations that is near and dear to my heart is Foster Advocates, and I know they have really enjoyed their workspace at your building and in your Equaspace. So I want to thank you, and to be able to have all of the nonprofits use the same resources and IT support really makes sense, and it also makes sense in the waste, fraud, and abuse, and accountability, because you have all these nonprofits, and you have a nonprofit as your next door neighbor, so you kind of are checking up on what they're doing, how they're working. So I think it's a really, really great idea and can help a lot of our nonprofits. So thank you, Senator Putnam, for bringing that forward.
Thank you. Any other questions for Senator Putnam or Ms. Klein? Seeing none, your closing comments, Senator Putnam, before we lay Senate File Number 800 on the table for possible inclusion. Senator Klein.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about this issue again, Mr. Chair. I very much appreciate it. Thank you for your kind comments, Senator Housley, and your co-authorship, Senator Draheim. I do think that this is, having visited the space, it's a fantastic space. And they're doing some great things to help people. And I think that that's a good thing. So thank you again, Senator Champion.
With that being said, Senate File Number 800 will be laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you. Members, we are now at the end of our day. So that concludes our business for this meeting. Our next hearing, as you know, will be on Monday, February 24th. And we'll have a number of bills that we will look at. As you know, as bills come in, we try to put them on the schedule so that we can make sure that we're always on top of things. With that being said, this meeting is adjourned.